The dean's office door was open the width of a hand, and the law librarian, who happened to be returning a stack of bound reporters in the hallway at 4:11 Tuesday afternoon, did not mean to overhear anything. She heard it anyway. A man's voice, low and careful, the kind of voice that has practiced sounding fatherly. A woman's voice, level. A second man's voice, the dean's clearing his throat between sentences, as if every sentence cost him something he had not budgeted for. The librarian set the stack of reporters on the bench outside, sat down, and pretended to look through her phone. "Miss Halver," the careful voice said, "we are concerned. Your seminar paper, however brilliant, raises questions about a private institution that funds a great deal of what happens in this building. A subpoena from your faculty advisor's footnotes is not a research methodology. Footnote 41 is a publicly filed currency transaction report," the woman said. Footnote 42 is a federal indictment from 2019. Footnote 43 is the bank's own annual disclosure. Nothing in the paper is sealed, and nothing in it is sourced from anyone who would not say the same thing to a grand jury. "The point," the dean said, "is that the firm sponsoring your scholarship has quite reasonably asked whether the paper should be circulated, even within the seminar. We can offer to mark it confidential. The grade stands. The committee will not." "The paper has already been read," the woman said. 3 professors have read it. The tax section reviewer has read it. It will be presented Thursday. I will not withdraw it." The librarian sat very still. She had checked the reading room sign-out card that morning. The card said the paper had been pulled twice in 8 days, both times by people who did not normally read tax law seminar drafts. She had thought it was strange, and had said nothing. She would, later, sign a sworn declaration that she heard the careful voice say, after a long pause, the words, "We are trying to protect you, Miss Halver. You should think about whether you want to graduate." The 3L who walked out of the dean's office a minute later was a woman of 29 named Wren Halver. She had come to law school late, after 7 years as a tax accountant at a mid-size regional auditing firm, after a year of night classes in forensic accounting, after deciding she wanted to understand the part of the work that the partners would not let her near. She wore a dark gray sweater and a long skirt and flat shoes. She did not look angry. She looked the way a person looks who has just heard a quiet threat and has decided to spend her evening cross-checking footnotes again to make sure none of them are wrong. She walked past the librarian without seeing her. She walked down the hall and down the stairs and across the quad. She went to the second-floor carrel where she had spent most of her last 18 months, and she opened her laptop, and she opened the file marked Seminar, Draft, Final, V11, and she read the abstract for the 7th time that day. The abstract said, "This paper maps a recurring structure of correlated suspicious activity report timing across the cash management division of a single mid-sized regional commercial bank between 2017 and 2025, and shows that the structure is consistent with a single laundering corridor of approximately $312 million serviced through 4 classes of shell entity. The structure was not designed to evade detection at the per-transaction level. It was designed to evade detection at the audit level by routing approvals through an officer who would not be audited. She had not gone looking for any of it. She had been writing a seminar paper on the bank's secrecy provisions of the Internal Revenue Code and the data set she had been given by the professor's research assistant, anonymized currency transaction reports from a regulator who had given the law school the data on the express condition that no entity be named had shown her, on the 3rd pass, that the same set of approval signatures kept appearing on transactions that should never have shared a signatory. She had de-anonymized the dataset in 3 hours using publicly filed disclosures. She had named the bank in a footnote and the compliance officer in another, and she had sent the draft to her advisor with a 1-line note. "I would like a second pair of eyes before this goes anywhere." The second pair of eyes had been the wrong ones, and now her scholarship was being threatened, and the placement office had called the morning before to say that 2 of her 3 federal clerkship interviews had been rescheduled indefinitely, and a man she had never met had emailed her firm's recruiting partner to ask whether her offer of employment was firm or contingent. She had not slept since Sunday. She had begun checking the rearview mirror on the drive-in. She had stopped using the parking garage and was parking on the street, behind the diner, in a spot the meter maid knew her by. She needed someone to read the paper who would not be afraid of it. The name of the person who would not be afraid of it had been crossed out twice on her legal pad and written back in once. The name was Gideon Tarot. He had been a federal investigator for the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network for 19 years, then a deputy chief of staff to a Senate banking subcommittee for 2 years. Then, after refusing to soften a referral involving a bank, one of the senators served on the board of He had been pushed out, then formally referred to his own state bar on a fabricated conflict of interest charge, suspended for 18 months, reinstated on appeal with the underlying complaint stricken from the record. He was 61. He worked out of a one-room office over a print shop on the east side of the city. The lettering on the door said simply, G. Tarot, Consultant. He took meetings between 10 and 4 and did not return calls after 6. The professor who had whispered Tarot's name to her in the corridor had also said, he will read it. Whether he keeps reading is up to your math. Ren Halver drove across town at 8 on Wednesday morning with a printed copy of the paper, the data set on a thumb drive, and a manila folder containing the de-anonymization key and a one-page index of the 43 footnotes. She climbed the narrow stairs above the print shop. The office was small and clean. There were no diplomas on the wall. There was a metal desk, 2 chairs, a coffee maker, a file cabinet, and a window. Gideon Tarot was a thin man with a close gray beard, a flannel shirt buttoned to the throat, and reading glasses pushed up into his hair. He shook her hand once. He did not smile. He said, sit. I have until 11. She did not waste it. She gave him the abstract. She gave him the de-anonymization key. She walked him through the 4 classes of shell domestic LLCs at 3 corporate service addresses in 2 states, foreign trade companies in 2 jurisdictions, a religious nonprofit, and a chain of franchised car wash entities. And she walked him through the correlated SAR timing. Every quarter, on the 3rd Thursday, a wave of suspicious activity reports filed by the bank's cash management division clustered in a single 8-minute window. The clustering had no operational reason. It had a procedural reason. The SAR review officer on the 3rd Thursday of every quarter was always the same person. The reports she filed cleared without escalation. The reports filed by anyone else, in any other window, escalated. Tarot said, name. Ren said, Marcine Broder, Senior Vice President. Compliance. 8 years in the chair. She was promoted out of branch operations in 2017, which is when the pattern begins. He took the printed paper. He read for 41 minutes without looking up. He turned each page slowly. He stopped twice, once on the chart on page 14 and once on the footnote on page 31, and read those again. When he reached the end, he closed the paper, set it square on the desk, and looked at her over the reading glasses. How old are you? He said. 29. Where did you do your accounting work? Sterner Reed Auditors. 7 years. 3 on insurance, 4 on community banks. Did you train on FinCEN's electronic filing platform? I filed 1,140 SARs across those 4 years. He nodded once. He looked out the window for a moment. He said, your paper is right. The structure is what you say it is. The number is conservative. You did the de-anonymization in 3 hours, and it would have taken any competent regulator the same 3 hours. The reason no competent regulator has done it is not that they could not. It is that the bank's general counsel has a pleasant standing relationship with 2 people on the regional examiner's staff and 1 person at the Treasury Liaison's office and a man at this law school. I know all 4 of those names. You should not. He pulled a yellow pad toward him. He drew a line down the middle. On the left side, he wrote protect. On the right side, he wrote prosecute. He looked up. Who knows you wrote this paper? My advisor, the tax section reviewer, 2 professors on the seminar committee, the dean, as of yesterday at 4:11, and whoever has been pulling it from the reading room. Who knows you are sitting in this office? Nobody. Good. Keep it that way for 48 hours. Drive home tonight by a different route. Park on a public street. Do not check email on hotel Wi-Fi. Do not delete anything. Do not back it up to the cloud. Back it up to a thumb drive and give the thumb drive to your mother. We are going to do 2 things at the same time. We are going to protect you. We are going to file. She said, File what? He said, a regulatory referral that nobody at the regional examiner's level can quietly shelve. A SAR, yes, a SAR filed by me on my license as a person with knowledge of suspicious activity not previously reported, with your paper as the supporting analytic. And, in parallel, a tip to the Public Corruption Unit of the United States Attorney's Office for this district. There is a deputy chief there named Lillian Mosey who came up under the assistant attorney who refused to let my referral die in 2018. She knows my name. She will not love hearing it. She will pick up the phone. He paused. As to you, he said, the dean's threat is the easier piece. It is also a written record. The minute he gave it to you, he handed you a wrongful threat against a student claim and a state bar complaint against the partner who called him. We will file both tomorrow morning, cleanly, by the book. He turned the yellow pad so she could read it. Both columns were full now. Do you want this? He said. She said, yes. He said, then we work. What followed, the law librarian would say later when she signed the second of her 2 declarations, was the quietest 48 hours she had ever witnessed in that building. Wren Halver did not miss a class. She turned in 2 memos that were due. She had coffee with a friend in the courtyard at the regular time. She also, between 4 and 10 each night, sat in Gideon Tarrow's small office above the print shop and built, with him, the paper trail that would walk the case out of the law school and into a federal courthouse. Tarrow filed his SAR Wednesday night, with Wren's analytic attached as an exhibit, his own license number on the form. He emailed Lillian Mosey at the United States Attorney's Office Thursday morning at 6:40 with a 1-line subject, pattern, Regional Commercial Bank, $312M corridor, can we meet, and an encrypted attachment. Mosey called him back at 8:02. The meeting was set for Friday at 10. Thursday afternoon, Wren presented the seminar paper as scheduled. The room was unusually full. The dean did not attend. The tax section reviewer asked 4 questions and pronounced the paper the cleanest piece of empirical regulatory analysis I have read from a student in 15 years. The 2 professors on the committee voted to recommend it for publication. The 3rd professor, the one who had whispered Tarrow's name in the corridor, quietly recorded the entire session on his own device with the room's consent and sent the file to Wren by email that night for safekeeping. Friday morning at 10, in a windowless conference room on the 5th floor of the Federal Building downtown, Gideon Tarrow and Wren Halver sat across from Lillian Mosey and 2 assistant United States attorneys and a forensic analyst on detail from the Treasury. Mosey was a woman of 48 in a navy suit, hair short, no jewelry, a yellow pad of her own. She did not waste time. She read the paper's abstract aloud, slowly. She looked up at Wren and said, Miss Halver, you understand that if I open a file on this, you are a witness, not an attorney, not a researcher, a witness. We will protect you. We will compensate you for travel. We will not put you on television. Are you prepared to testify, in a grand jury and a trial, to the contents of this paper and the methodology by which you assembled it? Wren said, yes. Mosey said, then we open a file. The grand jury was impaneled the following week. Subpoenas went out on the Wednesday to the bank's general counsel for the Cash Management Division's complete SAR review logs, to the Corporate Service registered agents for the underlying shell ownership records, to the 3 professors and the law librarian for sworn declarations, and separately, on the criminal docket to Marcine Broder, Senior Vice President of Compliance. 2 weeks later, after a depositional sequence that Tarrow walked Wren through line by line in his small office above the print shop, the United States Attorney filed a sealed indictment. It was unsealed on a Tuesday morning. It charged Marcine Broder and 2 co-conspirators within the bank and, in a separate count, one of the regional examiners Tarrow had named on his yellow pad with bank fraud, conspiracy to commit money laundering, and false statements to a federal regulator. The bank's general counsel and the bank's board entered, within the week, into a deferred prosecution agreement, a $312 million civil money penalty, a 5-year independent monitor, full restitution to the misidentified small business account holders the corridor had used as cover, and the removal of the named officers. The agreement was filed publicly on the federal court's electronic docket. The dean of the law school was not charged. He did not need to be. The state bar opened. On Wren's complaint and the law librarian's sworn declaration, an investigation into the named partner who had threatened her in the dean's office on Tuesday at 4:11. The investigation, conducted by an out-of-jurisdiction panel to avoid conflict, resulted in a 1-year suspension of the partner's license, a public reprimand, and a referral of the firm to its other states of practice. The dean himself was placed on indefinite administrative leave by the university trustees, pending a separate inquiry. The law school's faculty senate voted, unanimously, to award Wren Halver's seminar paper the year's prize for excellence in regulatory scholarship, and to fund out of the school's discretionary account the publication of the paper, with a foreword by the tax section reviewer, who wrote that the paper was what the discipline is for. Wren took her clerkships, in the end. Both of the federal interviews that had been rescheduled indefinitely unrescheduled themselves once the indictment was filed. She accepted the one in the Eastern District. She drove to her swearing-in a borrowed car. Her mother sat in the second row. Gideon Tarot sat in the third. He wore the same flannel shirt, buttoned to the throat. He did not smile during the ceremony either, but the law librarian, who was there because Wren had asked her to come, would say afterward that she saw him nod once when Wren raised her right hand, the small, precise nod of a man who had been right about a great many things over a great many years, and had, this one time, been allowed to see it land. The paper became, the following spring, a chapter in a casebook. The librarian shelved the casebook on the open reserve next to the bound reporters she had been carrying the afternoon she had pretended to look at her phone. She wrote the call number on the spine in her own neat hand. She added, in pencil on the catalog card because the catalog card was old, and she was old, and she had earned the right the small annotation. Read the footnotes. They are publicly filed. They are why she is still here.